Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. This is your April 3rd, 2015 edition, and we were hopefully going to have Brandon Wright, filmmaker Brandon Wright, as our guest, but he is running a little late. But I do have our illustrious leader from BSFS, Jarvis Sheffield, joining me. My name is William Hayashi. I'm your host, and Jarvis and I are going to talk about a few things and see where we get, and hopefully Brandon will be able to join us. I don't know. We tried to get him. He was scheduled. But this happens every now and then. Things happen in people's lives. The fortunate thing is I'm always here until I get the ankle bracelet off. Once I get the ankle bracelet off, my Fridays are mine again. So, Jarvis, welcome, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. And you?
I'm doing well. I was a little bummed out. I went around the corner. I live near one of these 8 million Starbucks that we have in this country, and I was a little sleepy, so I went and got some hot chocolate and walked back. But the temperature has gone back down in the 30s, which is very disappointing to me. I'm really anxious for spring. Other than that, from a science fiction perspective, everything's fine.
Good. Did you pick me up anything, though?
I did, and I emailed it to you. I hope you got it. I got you a piece of lemon loaf. I emailed that to you. It should still be there. I don't know if it's still going to be warm by the time you read it, so...
Okay, I'll unzip it in a few minutes.
All right. So anyway, Jarvis and I were talking about a number of things, and one of the things that I began to talk about before we started the actual show was I just posted something from The Guardian. I read their news most every day. I like it just because it's not U.S. news. Here in Chicago, we've got like the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times, and both of them, the Chicago Tribune someone has called in. Is Brandon from New Jersey?
I think that's Brandon.
Brandon, is that you?
I have to double check, though.
Hi.
Is that Brandon?
Yes. Hello?
Hey, hold on. We'll check his ID and make sure that's Brandon.
He says it's him.
Yes.
So,
Brandon.
Brandon, here's the deal, man. You showing up has saved me from having to have a whole show with Jarvis. So thank you for making it.
That's fantastic.
So anyway, as everybody can hear, Brandon has made it into the house, the virtual house.
Yeah, sorry, I saw your message way too late, and I totally lost track of time. Like I was actually doing the show, and I sometimes I try to close like internet stuff because I don't usually, but I close stuff to focus and stuff like that, and I lost track of time.
Well, you're here now, and that's all that's important.
Yay!
So Jarvis is going to just bow out, and just so that you know, we're going to have a little conversation about who you are, how you got where you are, what's interesting to you, and the kinds of things that made you the person you are, creatively, that is.
Oh, okay.
So first of all, where are you coming to us from? It says New Jersey on the board, but is that where you are now?
Yes, I live in New Jersey. I guess I should say it, but in South Jersey.
South Jersey? And is that like here in Chicago where we have the South Side and the North Side? Is South Jersey kind of like delineated as a more urban area?
No, it's actually pretty. It's not like that. I don't know why it's called North and South. Actually, I don't know. It's just easier. Maybe because Jersey's long and it's like it's easier to categorize it that way. I don't know. But yeah, it's not really. There's not really like a territorial kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you're traveling there, if it's that long and that big, if you're trying to tell somebody, hey man, can you drop me off in Jersey? And they go, well, where do you want to go? You go South Jersey or North Jersey.
Yeah, it's like that. Or when you're telling somebody, in a situation like this, when you're telling somebody like where you live or what part of Jersey or something like that. It's just, I don't know, it's just easier.
Pretty cool. Now, did you grow up there or somewhere else?
Yes, I grew up in the exact spot I'm sitting in right now, actually.
Well, that's not bad. I mean, it's not a bad thing.
No, it's
I
not,
grew up.
no,
I'm still in Chicago. I grew up here, and you're basically you're a 3D animator, a filmmaker, and a director, according to Jarvis. And one of the things that I'm curious about is that I always want to ask is, when you were coming up, when you were growing up, were these areas of interest that manifested themselves early on, or is this something you picked up later? Because I'm kind of curious how you grew up.
Yeah, pretty early on I was interested in making movies. It wasn't really like ever since I was a kid. I would be like, I'm going to be a filmmaker, and then that lasted from like when I was like 7 until high school, and then I started actually making like short films. Until that period, I was just sort of like goofing off and just sort of interested in movies and in that area, but kind of lightly, kind of surface level, not really paying attention to actually doing it, but just as an interest level. But yeah, ever since I was a kid, I went to make movies. I wasn't really sure what kind, but yeah.
Yeah, and then as far as what your interests were at that time, were you, was there like a sci-fi interest in the movie making? There's a number of people who were driven to it, by the likes of seeing Star Wars or Alien, something like that, where they went, oh man, I want to make movies like that. What were you interested in early on? Or well, not the early part, not the 7-year-old part, but when you picked it back up again?
Definitely Star Wars. Since then, since 7. But yeah, just I don't know. I guess I can't even remember. I guess it was. I mean, definitely I've been a fan. I've been a Star Wars fan since I was a kid. I'm not really sure what really hit the switch in my head. I was like, oh, I want to do that. But I was definitely a fan of Star Wars. I was definitely a fan of those sort of sci-fi movies and stuff like that. But really, I was just like a movie fan. Like I was just like I remember when I was like a teenager, I was watching I watched like The Godfather for the first time and stuff like that, and I would seek out films that like filmmakers should watch kind of thing, and I was like always like fascinated, and I thought it was cool, and but yeah, I didn't see like Alien and James Cameron stuff till like later, till like high school really. Or I guess I couldn't see Alien when I was a kid anyway, but yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a fan of like action movies and cartoons and yeah, definitely interested in that kind of stuff.
And when you started making movies in high school, what kind of scripts or what kind of plots or what kind of genre were you able to indulge in, at that younger age?
It was I guess it's funny because there's like a saying that filmmakers make the directors make the same movie over and over again. But like early on, I started. I guess the first movie I made was about it was some weird science fiction thing about like a light that was in the woods behind my house, and the light is like a portal for aliens. Now I'm saying this now that I'm realizing that I started out making science fiction movies, and I didn't really think about that. But yeah, it was like that was the first thing, was like a sci-fi movie about aliens coming through some portal in my backyard or something, and then I fought the alien, and it's not as good as it sounds at all. It's not even close, but it was it was fun to do, and it sort of got me into the world, which is the most important thing. I wouldn't suggest anyone see it, but for me it was like an important way to get into it. But other than that, I guess, but yeah, it was varied. It wasn't really any specific type of thing I was making. It was like my next movie was about how normal people are superheroes, and the thing after that was I think it was a movie I shot in my park, which was about like childhood, and it was it was about a guy who's kind of wearing a suit, and he walks into this playground, and the guy is me, but it was just me. I was wearing like this nice little shirt. It was in high school, and I walked into this playground. And I start just cutting loose, and in the nice clothes, start playing, and then it's like I had this emotional thing where I see like this little toy in the grass, and I get really emotional, and it's kind of like a metaphor for like childhood. And the film's called Last Day of Childhood, and when I leave, I sort of like put my dress clothes back on, and it's sort of like a metaphor for I had my little child moment, but I have to leave the park now and get back to adulthood and stuff like that. That was one I made, I think, last year of high school, and but also high school I started learning Blender, which is the animation software I use now, and in high school I was sort of learning that too, and I made a film in Blender also, which was when I started like last year high school. That was the first time I started to get into animation stuff like that too. So yeah, so that was my early.
So it sounds like you're fairly young. I mean,
yeah,
I don't.
23.
Oh, you're 23.
Yeah.
So this is kind of cool because we're getting to talk to you, sort of at the beginning of what you may be doing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool because when we get to ask you about the motivations, I mean, it sounds to me like you recognized movies that had some sort of classical bent to them that were, like you said, movie maker movies. And so if you have movie maker movies that you recognize and you see, I mean, for you in the last year of high school to want to do something that had the emotional content like you just described, trying to convey those kinds of nuances, that's pretty sophisticated stuff for a younger filmmaker, at least to my mind.
I hope so. I think I knew that from very early. Now it's early, but back then I just felt like I was making great stuff or whatever. But I knew then, like when I started in high school, after the stupid sci-fi movie in the woods or whatever, I knew that like even before that I knew of movies like critically, like I knew what a bad movie was. And I understood the basic level of just of just
film production.
Yeah, like that, but also like themes and what's important, I guess, to a good movie. I think I understood that. I didn't really understand how to convey that as much as I do now, and how to use that like as a tool. But I definitely understood like I could go back then. I could go actually the first Transformers movie was good, but back then I could go to Transformers 2, which I did in high school, and I could go yeah, I enjoy that, and now I don't enjoy it, but then I was I could go oh, I enjoyed that, but that's not on the level of like a Godfather or like a Casablanca. Those are two different distinctions, and from that,
yeah,
I think if you can make that as a young filmmaker, for any young filmmakers who do, if you can make that distinction, I think that's really important.
I think there's definitely a delineation. And sometimes there's some crossover, but not as much today just because of how the Hollywood studio system works. But, there's a delineation between storytelling and entertainment.
Yeah.
Because, you can tell a great story, and you may not have a single gunshot or an explosion in it. But in order to entertain people today, it appears as though the public's taste runs along, basically destruction porn, like the Liam Neeson movies. What are they taking? The older white guy coming in and saving the day with his badass skills. James Bond. James Bond is a great franchise. I think they're their 23rd movie, but. But in terms of storytelling, I don't think anybody would look at any James Bond movie and say that that's epic storytelling, at least not in the same vein as maybe The Godfather, as you mentioned, or Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane is one of those where it's a movie maker's delight merely because, when you look at all the the production values and things like that, it's a remarkable movie.
Yeah,
So
actually,
I mean, you're at the. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say actually I'm not like that big on Citizen Kane, but that was like why. But I understand exactly what you're saying. But like
No, I the story was not that great, and also it has one of the biggest flaws in storytelling because nobody was around when the dude said Rosebud. So you got this whole movie built up on this whole non-existent shit. This thing that went on.
True.
Yeah, so I get you.
I just wanted to, because I mentioned that, I brought it up, and I just felt like I'm not one of those, filmmakers who, and that's another thing for, like as a young filmmaker, you go like, oh, Citizen Kane, that must be great, even though I don't understand it, blah blah blah. But now I kind of, I mean, it's not bad. I don't really know whether it's good or bad. Like I'm not one to say, but
yeah, I'll tell you what it is about me. When you look at the staging of the shots, and you have, long shots, you have shooting from the floor, things like that. I think it's a good clinic in the possibilities of what you can use in order to frame the visuals of your story. But when you have
like
such a big flaw like that,
great.
I'm sorry.
Like I was just saying, like the techniques in that film is why it's renowned so much, I think.
Yeah. So, okay, so you start doing your movies at the end of high school. You're already using Blender.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like you really had this kind of laid out as where you were going or what you were going to do.
Yeah, it's just it's more like just like an obsession. It's I don't know, I don't know if it's like a passion or obsession at this point, but it's kind of like either one of those, and it was just kind of like that's like I guess it's a basic thing of when you're artists or whatever, like you need that to sort of vent, and you kind of need it. It's kind of like okay, well I'll deal with real life but now I'm gonna create this world and say what I want to say through these characters and blah blah blah. It's more like that, I think, than. Because a lot of people who are really nice, they give me like a lot of credit, and they say like oh my god, you're so driven and stuff, and I'm like I don't know if I am. I just feel like I have to get it out, or I'm gonna go insane, sort of thing.
Well, okay, I mean,
and that's how
filmmaker.
Like that, I say
being
that.
A filmmaker's not. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
In high school. Yeah. Like I say, I only say it because that's kind of how I felt. Like in high school, I didn't really feel like. Like Chance, to say what you were saying, I didn't really feel like, okay, I mean, I felt like, okay, I want to be a director as a career, but I didn't feel like I wasn't making the movies in the sense that like okay, this is how I start, and this is where I go from here. It was just kind of I just wanted to make good. I don't know. I just wanted to to make good movies and stuff like that.
And what did you do at that age, and as you're going along, in the service of learning your craft? Did you take classes? Obviously you read a lot, you saw a lot of movies.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I still not regrettably a big reader and stuff like that. I have read film books and stuff like that. But yeah, I went to Penn State, out of high school. I went to Penn State. I eventually left there, but I went to Penn State to hopefully pursue film at the time and stuff like that, and I continued, of course, to make movies and watch movies and stuff like that.
And it's harder to try to delineate exactly who you are because you're so young. You're gonna, I would imagine that you may go through different iterations of being a creative, but you have created an animated series already, and that's called DEADSTAR, right?
DEADSTAR.
Can you tell us a little bit about where that came from creatively?
I think. Well, I guess I was in college. I think it was 2000. Yeah, it was 2011. I was making at that point, since I made animated short film in high school. So at that point, I think I made a couple. Yeah, I made a few. And I wanted to. And I started to get back into anime. As a kid, I watched Dragon Ball Z and anime and stuff like that. But but after Toonami went away, for anyone who knows anime, they know about that stuff. But after, like, Toonami was a thing that showed anime on Cartoon Network, and they showed Dragon Ball Z, which is heavily, which, you know, as any like 10-year-old or 13-year-old kid was obsessed with Dragon Ball Z at that age, at that period. And yeah, I loved Dragon Ball Z, and I didn't really know anime. I was just like, this show is just the greatest thing that ever happened. And then when that went away, I sort of just, you know, I didn't like, it wasn't like now. Like, I'm pretty young, but I'm not like, but you know, but even when I was a kid, things were not at all like they are now. Like I couldn't just go, oh, well that's not on TV anymore, so let me go on the internet. Like, it wasn't like that. It was like, oh, I won't see that ever again now. And so when that went away, I was like, okay, well, I guess no more Dragon Ball Z unless, you know, I go out and buy it or something, which I didn't really do. And so I would get the toys and stuff like that, but in college I sort of got back into anime, and I sort of actually sought it out, and because my little brother was watching this anime show called Bleach, and he was like, oh, get into this. This is cool. Yeah, it's like Dragon Ball Z, and it's really cool. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it looks cool. So after I got into Bleach, you know, I started to refuel my anime love, and then I was making animated short films at the time. So I kind of went like, oh wait, so I'm making animated short films. Like, why don't I just, like, I learned a way to make them kind of look cartoony. So I was like, wait, why don't I just do what I've been doing, but have it follow the same story, and I can make it look cartoony, and I could basically make, you know, what I loved about Dragon Ball Z, and I could basically try to make that or whatever. So that's kind of you know, how I decided to make a short series. I thought, like, well, I'm already making, you know, technically I'm making a series. I'm just making different stories with different films. So I figured, I should, you know, I learned how to make sort of cartoony looking things, and from there I, you know, decided to make an anime type show.
For those of you who are interested in checking this out, you can go to www.youtube.com/user/DeathStar Series, all one word, DeathStar Series.
Yeah.
Well, I'm on the page and it says DeathStar Series. So.
Yeah, no, I thought you said Death Star, like Star Wars Death Star or something.
Oh no, DeaDSTAR Series, DEADSTAR So
a lot of people say Death Star, and I'm like, no, it's not Star Wars. It's like a thing. Yeah.
Probably my lisp because of bad teeth.
I'm sorry.
But no, I'm just kidding, man. So okay, so you sit down, you say, all right, you know, I'm not going to see the thing that I wanted to see, so why can't I go and create what I want to create? And that's a huge step. I mean, the fact that you had some movie making background is pretty cool. But to go and have, you know, the fortitude or the creativity to go and create on your own is pretty cool. You know, what I want to know is when you decided to do this, was this a singular endeavor? Did you have other people helping you? And also, what kind of encouragement did you get? Because sometimes you kind of need that feedback to know that you're doing something that's worthy.
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't. Like, I never really. I don't know if it's just out of I don't know, some arrogance or something, but I never really sought out any help for making movies or something. I don't know why. Like, I always like. In this case, I kind of like. Now I do it because I like the idea of just having. I think it'd be interesting to people now because that one guy does it just because I think you rarely see things that have singular voice to things, especially like animated series or something like that. But and it's kind of like a gimmick now. It's kind of like, hey, this show made by one guy, and that's totally cool. And that's, you know, I'm not going to shy away from that. I think that's interesting or whatever, or it might be interesting for someone watching. But then I didn't. I just knew that I could. I just thought, like, oh, I could probably do this by myself. Like, I could probably, if I just, you know, it might take a while, but I just wanted to try. I just wanted to try it. I didn't really think about whether it'd be practical or whether it makes sense to get other people to help me, which it would have. yeah, and then I knew, and at the time I knew I could get voice actors online through the internet because I was working on another animated short film, and I had already cast some voice actors just through the internet for free or whatever through the site called Voice Actors Alliance, and then like I felt like, oh well, that was another reason why I knew I could do it, because I was like, oh well, I know how to do this cartoon style animation now, and for voice actors, since I can't do it all by myself, I can go to that site since I already went to, and so that was another reason why I knew I could do it that way, and yeah, I forget your other question. I'm sorry. What was your other question?
Oh no, that's okay. But I mean, when you think about it, what makes it possible is the tools that we have these days. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Just a short time ago, having one person do this with just having some voice actors come in and dubbing, that would have been a considerable task. That would have been a huge task. Yeah. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that was part of the reason why I thought it was interesting. That's part of the reason why I think that sort of I don't want to say gimmick, but that sort of theme of the show that I make it by myself and it's all free and it's all free sound effects and all this stuff. I think as far as it's like a sort of I keep saying gimmick, but as far as the gimmick goes, I think that's kind of interesting that people would go hey, check out this show made by just this one guy, and I think it's more a testament, I think, to the internet than it is to me. I think it's more to me. I think it's interesting look, anyone can do this now. It's not, if I could do it, anybody can. It's I find that really interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, anybody can do it, but not everybody can do it well. I mean, that's
true.
That's the challenge. Somebody wants to know where did you get? You mentioned you got voice talent online. Is there like a website where voice talent is hanging out looking for work?
Yes, indeed, and I'm glad I can plug it. It's called voiceactorsalliance.com or .org or something. But yeah, it's like a place. It's like a forum where you could go to just go hey, I have this project, whether it be radio or audio or whatever, and for my case it was original visual, and oh, yes, yeah, sorry, and but yeah, it's one of those places where you can go hey, I have an original project, and I'm looking for voice actors, and you can, and in your form thing you go, you describe the character, and then you maybe put a few lines like how are you, or arg, or some lines, some examples for people or whatever for the actors, and then you put your email, and then they just email you their audition. It's basically like an audition call, and it's free.
Very cool. That's a great resource, and for people who are looking at it, it's voiceactingalliance.com. And I guess you're actually taken to the community forum when you just put in the URL. So check it out for those of you who are looking for inexpensive or what have you voice talent. So pretty much you're, with the exception of the talent, you're a one-man show, correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
And taking a look at your channel on YouTube, there are several episodes. You've got DEADSTAR Movie 2, Movie 1, Season 1 official episodes. This is quite a body of work. I mean, how long now have you really been doing it?
And yeah, I was gonna say it's only really a body of work because I've just been doing it for so long. But it's not really it takes time. But yeah, I've been doing it, I guess, about 3 years, I think. Or almost.
All right, and so
4 in August.
Great. So what's good about this? When people go here and see all of this stuff that you've done, and that you've done it in such a relatively short amount of time, hopefully this will make them get up off their own butts and get something done.
That'd be nice, because I'm pretty sure, like you said, it's it's not like it's who can do it well sort of thing, and I feel like there are tons of people who do this way better than me. Like I don't know that much about, you know, animation. I look at these people like online who are just experts at animation. But the difference is, you know, their expertise sort of in animation, and mine was originally, not that it's expertise, but my experience was originally in just filmmaking in general. And I think
Sure.
there's probably someone out there who's better at me than both, and I can't wait to see what that guy does.
Yeah, but that's kind of okay. Yeah, but there are people who, people draw better than I do, you know, and people definitely for damn sure write better than I do. You know, I've got a few novels out there, and some short stories, but man, I read other people's stuff and I go, you know, one day, you know, I hope to be that good. And then the other part of what you do, the part B of what you do is tell us a little bit about the process of storytelling, because that's ultimately the bottom line. I don't give a damn if you could do great animation. And, you know, some people will love great animation. It's like people who go to movies just to see explosions.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
if you're in the business of storytelling, how do you draft your stories? Where does that creativity come from?
It's actually, yeah, you made an important point, by the way, about just like people who, you know, who can well, first of all, I do the same thing you do. I see people who can write really well and stuff like that, even like just big movies, and I go like, oh well, I maybe one day I'll get there, but yeah, there's a line where I realized a while ago, actually in the middle of the show, that it's more important to be a good I felt like it was just more important to be like a better writer than you know, animator or whatever, and I felt like and I felt like, and not that stopped me from, you know, like still learning and trying to be better at animation. I felt like but a big thing I look for is sort of like I go how's my thing going to be different, and that's not really a thing you should do that much. You shouldn't focus too much on just being different. It should be like the focus should be being good. But I felt like you know, you're in the internet, you're in this sort of this sort of pool of just, you know, just other talent and stuff like that, and just other talent who's probably better than yours, who aren't getting the recognition and stuff like that. So I figured like I wanted to be like, if I started out in filmmaking, then I knew I had to be the best, had to be the most creative thing I could do, or whatever, and the best written thing I could do. And I knew that that's more important than, because like you said, anyone can, you know, you can go to any Pixar movie and see way better animation or whatever. Like there's or any, you know, any Disney movie or anything. There's tons of things that you can go to see great animation or whatever. And whether it's by one guy or 100 or whatever, you know, but I felt like for this, if people were going to watch it, they would need to be, you know, interested in the story and the characters and storytelling and hopefully the fact that it's done by one dude. And and I knew that sort of early on. That I knew that, like, okay, well, it's not possible for me to do animation as good as even like a television anime or something like that. So my thing has to be good in a different. You have to get something from this that you can't get that from one of those other places or whatever. And I knew that at a time.
Yeah, or you just have to tell a story that people have an affinity for.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's not to say that great animation can't tell a story. I think one of the best examples of visual storytelling with no dialogue was the very first part of the movie Up. Did you see Up?
Or WALL-E, yeah, Up's great.
Yeah, but I mean, WALL-E especially, but Up, because you actually had two people who could talk, but you know, they told that story of that couple.
Yeah, exactly.
In such poignantly visual terms that nobody was without understanding of what the story was.
And
so
I think for
most
people, like for most people, it's just about that movie. Most people, like, I think that's the part they remember the most. Like, and that's a great movie, but like, and I remember every scene of that movie because I love it, and especially the end. But yeah, like most people say that the beginning is what they really remember out of anything.
Right. Right. And even now as I sit here, you know, that sequence of the two, you know, growing old together
Yeah.
it overshadows the rest of the movie, except for the part where you have to say squirrel.
Yeah.
Okay, that was some funny. That was very amusing.
Yeah, that was really well done because it kind of needed to be for the rest of the movie to work, I think.
Yeah, and then there are other animated movies that would work equally well had you used real actors, and I think The Incredibles is probably a good example of that kind of storytelling. If you could have done The Incredibles as a real live movie, I think it still would have appealed to a broad number of people because, again, it was great storytelling that moved that movie along. Not necessarily the fact that it was, you know, an animated movie.
Yeah, and I think, well, that movie, I think, like, the reason, yeah, you're right, it could be done with, like, actors or whatever, but I guess this doesn't have to be, like, I've seen really good anime movies by Studio Ghibli that literally are just filmed like a regular movie with no sort of special features that are great movies or whatever, and it doesn't, I wouldn't say that it's necessary to, you know, like, film it. I'm not saying it's like oh they wasted their time or whatever, but it's, I think that animation adds something. But in Incredibles, I feel like the fact that the superpower element, I think they like the way they use that with animation, I think is the reason why like that works so well in animation. But other than that, yeah, you're right. It could be like the fact that the daughter like could turn invisible and like, you know, like all that stuff. Like I think that mixed really well with like the animated you know, form or technique.
Mhm.
But,
yeah.
but yeah,
so,
you're right.
But to go back to you, you know, you started out basically making movies. You said it, you know, it was something that obviously piqued your interest. Plus, you had a good awareness very, very early on at a very young age of what makes for good storytelling. So how do you, you know, what is it that moves you in creating, how do you create your stories? What's the basis for it? Like for me, I'll give you an example. For me, for everything I write, whether it's either a movie or a novel, the ending is the most important part because to my way of thinking, that's the last thing people see. That's what they remember when they're walking away or closing the book and putting it back on the table or what have you. And that if you don't have a good ending, there is the tendency for the reader or the viewer to think that maybe they were cheated or they will never get that 2 hours back in life or you know, that was $20 I could have spent on, you know, whatever. So I always think in terms of what makes for a good ending, and then I write a story that gets to that ending. How do you construct your stories?
Well, it's interesting actually you said that because I thought the up ending was good, but now that I think about it, maybe it wasn't as good as the ending. Or I mean, it's as good as the beginning because, you know, the beginning is so powerful to people, and that's what everyone's talking about. But anyways, yeah, I think I kind of just do the basic thing of, you know, what would I want to see and why do I like movies so much, and I incorporate that sort of, like I gotta go like, okay, well, like in this kind of thing, I actually did, ironically, I did come up with the ending first for DEADSTAR, and I did.
Okay.
But it wasn't for the same reasons that you were saying. It was more of a theme. It was more the ending was important. It had this. It was like very symbolic for a theme that's about you know, like what is the one life worth more than the other, and is the theme of like the sacrifice theme that I thought was interesting, and how you know like there's a scene in one of the episodes where the main character has to make a choice between killing the child, which now that I'm saying it's horrible, but so it's a choice between killing a child and letting everyone else in the situation live, or not doing it and everyone dies. And I thought the choice of, and that sort of sort of theme of sacrifice, whether it's like would it be wrong to do that, or like that sort of morality was really interesting to me, and I kind of came up with the ending scene first, and then everything else in the show is just backwards. It's just sort of like, okay, well, how
to
do I
get to that. Okay.
Yeah, and for the episodes though, it's more like for the overall, like it's not, but like the ending thing is just since it's a series, that's just kind of a small thing because you know it has to run for a while, or I want it to run for a while. It doesn't have to, but in terms of like just structure of the series, it just changes. It changed actually from the beginning. Like originally, I wanted it to be sort of maybe a shorter show, and now I kind of like now I've kind of got into the sort of longer series, like I like animes like Naruto, One Piece that go on for years, and you kind of get to experience so many different adventures with the characters, and so now it's more like how to construct one of those series, and why do those work, and how do they work, and what kind of pitfalls the other series sort of suffer from. And now I kind of, like on the basic structure level, I go like, okay, well, I need to structure it the way they do, and it needs to be, it needs to be like this. I want it to be like one of those classic TV shows where you sort of, tune in, and then it's like, oh, what are these characters going on, this week and stuff like that. And originally the show wasn't like that. So structurally, it's changed a little bit writing wise, but yeah, that's a basic level, I guess, of how I came up with the story and how I write the episodes.
Well, it also sounds like you're taking on, traditionally large themes. It sounds like it would be, if I were to borrow from another series, it sounds like your conflict there, or at least the issue was, do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one?
Yeah, exactly. You just said it way better than I did.
Well, I stole it from Star Trek. I mean, I'm not gonna,
True. It's that was actually in the new one too. But yeah.
Yeah, but that's something that that's an issue that has legs, because you could have that same. You have that issue, but how you attack it is different. In your case, you're talking about, if killing this kid saves 250,000 people, but it's still killing a kid. Can I kill the kid, even though the 250,000 people are going to suffer? Well, obviously, man, I'd be stomping that kid to death. But that's me. That's just me, because I'm a bottom line guy. But you have when you tell that story.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it was more like since the main character is kind of this like sort of very related, just a basic sort of hero sort of protagonist, where he's in that hero cast, in that hero kind of mold. Yeah, and it's sort of like, and then heroes have to have. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, or like I think it's like I thought it was interesting to give sort of a classic hero sort of such a difficult like situation like that. Like it's kind of like that is for a person. I thought the psychology of that guilt that you would feel after, like, is that more powerful to you than actually saving those people or whatever? Like that kind of would you be happier if you didn't have that blood on your hands, but all those other people are dead somewhere else? You know what I mean? It's kind of like that's kind of what weirdly the whole series is based on, a theme like that.
Mhm. And being able to identify, putting together tropes like that in your storytelling, I would have to believe that makes it far more interesting from a serial aspect, because you have well delineated characters, you have seemingly good antagonists and protagonists, but the issues are just like our lives today. In my life today, I may face X issue, and I have to deal with it. And then suppose somebody's looking at the book of my life, they see, okay, I faced this issue this time. I faced serious illness. A friend of mine was in dire straits. And I think that being able to create three-dimensional characters that people start to believe in and people start caring about, makes them want to come back and see what's going on in their life, just like I would guess someone would have with an interesting friend. You know, Nathan does some really cool stuff all the time. I wonder what he's up to now. We find out, he just got robbed, but he had the opportunity to kill his robber, but he did blah blah. And I think that's the essence of good storytelling. So it seems like your arcs and the kinds of the places you're going to take your stories, even though they're may not be completely planned out, have the kind of prep, have the kind of vision to keep your characters interesting. And I know
that's exactly what I love about television. Like what you said about it's kind of like the TV characters you kind of think of them as your friends after a while. Like if something's going on long enough, which is why I wanted to turn DEADSTAR into a long series or whatever, because I love sort of when you just even like the classics, television shows where it's kind of like, oh, what's Lucy doing this week, and you kind of feel like it's kind of like your friend, and it's kind of a personal connection that you don't really. I mean, you get with movies too, with series of movies, but you don't really. But yeah, I love that about television. That's kind of why I wanted to change it, because I wanted to. I love that.
Yeah, episodic storytelling is compelling because for two reasons. One is we're used to it. I mean, going back to the 1930s, you would go in and you would see your 12 to 18 minute Flash Gordon episode before the main event, before the headlining movie, and people kept coming back to see that. And then the other thing is, if you create complex three-dimensional characters, and I don't mean you have to make, you don't have to make your character three-dimensionally complex in the first 6 minutes of the, you show them in different situations, and that's how people pick up who they are, what their values are, and things like that. And let's take a recent example. Look how conflicted, how many people were cheering for Walter White in Breaking Bad to win, to get away, to conquer cancer, to escape his brother-in-law, all of these things. And this guy was as heinous a person as you would ever meet, but because of the way he was portrayed, because of the complexity, and again, going back to the storytelling, not everybody liked the story, and I'm not going to sit here and defend anything, but the storytelling was compelling enough for television that people every Sunday night were sitting down watching that show. And it sounds like you've already planned out that approach with DEADSTAR.
Yeah, definitely. It's after watching shows like that, which is funny. It's funny you say that about Breaking Bad, because there's literally people online who I don't understand where this comes from, but they literally hate the wife character, and there's a whole thing about fans of that show who hate Skyler or whatever in Breaking Bad, and they're like, oh, she's this, and she ruins everything, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, and they're rooting for Walter White so much that they hate the actual good person who's actually suffering and being tortured by.
Not only that, but she's trying to protect her family.
Exactly.
Oh my God! You got the biggest meth dude in America, probably the world, and you got a brand new baby, and you got what, Nazis? Well, they weren't all skinheads; they all didn't shave. But I mean, you got these white supremacists. You got all of this stuff going on, and people are dumping on her. Although I will say this about Vince Gilligan. He does not know how to write women characters very well, and I think Skyler's character, from a viewer's perspective, suffered because of that. But still, I get what you mean, because you write such a complex but heinous person like Walter White, and you have people choosing him over the person who's protecting his baby.
Yeah, it's like they can't make that distinction, but just because of the thing I was saying, and how you just love Walter, and I did, when I was watching the show, I was like, maybe it's just because of the way Bryan Cranston plays him, and I don't know what it is about him, but he's just a great character that you literally love, and you want to see him do well, even though, and then also but mainly in that show, it's mainly because you understand why he does everything, like sometimes he does selfish things and stuff like that, and I mean especially towards the end. But you kind of understand, like when you like the fact that he's a three-dimensional character and he's so well written, is because you understand everything that's happening. And but on the same end of the spectrum or whatever, I understood everything that's happened with Skylar, so I don't really understand people who hate her. But for Walt, like I kind of understood like just exactly what like he when he was enjoying like some of the bad stuff he's doing. I was like, yeah, I get why he's enjoying it, and I get like I don't really think he should be, but I understand like the psychology of it all. And I think that like for that case, I think that's just a really well written show. But that's it's a good example of how episodic things you can literally grow with these people to the point where you're like defending them despite what they're doing.
Well, and that's the other thing too. We have such a shallow culture in America that a Walter White can be lauded as a hero in our culture. I think back.
It's also because of like there's like an obsession or a fascination with sort of like the crime the crime fantasy, like a Scarface kind of thing. Like I think there's definitely a fantastical element to a guy like that in that specific situation where he's sort of rising through this sort of this crime, this really dangerous world, and he's kind of like rising to the top of it. And so I think that's another one of the main reasons why, because if he was just a guy doing crazy things, it wouldn't be as interesting. But the fact that he's so desperate
and
to climb this ladder.
Yeah, and coming from his beginnings, that's what it was. It was the whole the climb from being a chemistry teacher to being probably the greatest subsumed crime lord in America.
Yeah, exactly. Like you literally with him through the whole journey, kind of thing.
Yeah. And so when you think about things like that, because obviously you're well versed in what makes for good TV, and even and please don't take this the wrong way when I say at your age, but a lot of people your age don't look deep into very much. Let's say very much, okay? And you have taken this on from a very, very good, a very deep perspective, in order to, and I think it's in the service of your success. I mean, in order to tell.
It's mainly because even though, like you said, I am pretty young, but it is like I guess I've just been thinking about it like for a long time. Like I think people who don't think into things, whether it's movies or blah blah, it's because it's usually things that it's not really important to them or something. But this kind of thing has just been important to me since I was a kid. So it's kind of like I just have the element of time, like because I've been through those phases where like I would walk into things and just not really think that. Like I've been through just the phase of kind of being on surface level into things and not really seeing the importance of
Yeah, but I mean, we all are. I think we all are. But what I'm saying is the difference where you are is you're applying, considerable thought and analysis in the service of your art.
Yeah. I think. I think most people do. And I just have the advantage of I've been doing it for long enough that I know my strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that. And I've been thinking about it for a long time. Like I think about things. I just have that element of having to just thinking about how to make the best thing for so long that I've picked up some things.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fair enough, but okay, let's back up about 25 seconds. And you said you have your strengths and your weaknesses. In terms of creating the series, maintaining it, producing it, and what have you, where do you think your weaknesses lie?
Now I don't really know, but I guess it would be. Well, I can't really say now because I kind of know how to steer myself. But definitely before, I guess it was I think it was trying to be, it was trying so hard not to meet I think it was trying so hard to be different, but also, yeah, I think that was just it. Trying so, like, before, just in writing wise, I was trying so hard to do something different.
Forcing that.
Yeah, I was just
kind of forcing it.
I was like,
Yeah.
and I was just sort of straying away from just anything that I've seen before, instead of thinking like, oh, well, take this because you like this from what you've seen before, and instead of doing that, I don't do that. I didn't do that then, and now I kind of know how to do that more. And
Well, I mean, everybody wants to be creative. I mean, nobody wants to have somebody come up to them right in their face and say, hey, did you know that everything you did is derivative of, X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that was one of my problems, and I've kind of know how to go around it now.
Mhm. And it sounds like you've got your story arc planned out pretty well. How far in the future do you have kind of sitting in the forepart of your mind? I mean, we all know that you can always write new, but as you sit here now, do you about how far forward are you looking?
In terms of just it's pretty far. I mean, pretty much to the end, but which in time-wise would be like a few years. But like, but I know, and also I know like the holes of where I can add things and take things away. But but yeah, since I kind of I know how to and I try to fit things when I think of new things, I try to find a way to fit them into previous things, just to just so things aren't like coming out of nowhere and stuff like that. And but yeah, I have I say that, but before when I first started, I had like a plan to go for how long, but then I changed a lot of that, and so I don't know. I have like now the plan I have makes way more sense than it did in the beginning. So hopefully I'll stick with it. But yeah, I do have it all planned, and that's important, I think, when you start.
What doesn't that kind of speak to the having more experience? I mean, as you go along, I think if you're a good creative, then you are always a work in progress. That's my belief. I don't know if other people believe that, but at least I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you should definitely being able to adapt to whatever is definitely really important. But it's also really important to know what you want at the same time. But you should. But it's good to not look at what you do with an ego. I mean, it's good to have an ego, but it's also good to know how far your ego goes. And it's good to if someone says like, oh, I don't like that about that. It's good to know why you're doing things, so you can go like, because I'm not one of those people who, if someone says, oh, I didn't like this about this, not someone who goes like, oh, well, you're wrong and I'm right or whatever. I'll go like, why did you say that? And it's like, there's a part of everyone that's a little bit like that, but there's a part, but now I kind of know to go like, okay, why did he say that? Is he right? And then now I kind of go like, okay, well, no, he's not right because I did this because of that, and that makes sense because of this, and blah, blah. That's important to do, and it's important to question everything. It's important not to just look at a comment on the internet and go like, oh, he's a stranger, I shouldn't listen to that. It's like well, you should listen, to the audience or whatever. It's like,
well,
it's important to know when the audience is right or wrong. That's what I'm trying to say, I think.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is you're creating entertainment, and the entertainment is not for you necessarily. The entertainment is for an audience out there, and a lot of newer creatives have a difficulty with any kind of critique at all because it takes a little bit of time. No. But it takes a little bit of time for people to realize that critique is not a repudiation of self.
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, I definitely, like anyone else, anytime anyone critiques something, I go like, oh, well, I suck, and I shouldn't even be doing this, or this, I hate this.
Oh, no.
Or I go both ways. I either go like, oh, I hate him, and I look him up, and I'm like, oh, who is that, and blah, blah. And because I'm not like, I don't have a thick skin. Like I'm you know, but I think but yeah, I think like there's no cure for criticism. There's no like, oh, well, I'm over criticism now and I'm
no, but you also you have to look at it with even your own critical self, because some criticism doesn't matter. Let me give you a really good example, okay, because I had this happen to me. I enjoy very, very good ratings on Amazon for my first book. Right. And then all of a sudden I logged on one day and I saw that I got my only 1-star review.
Oh, jeez.
And the first thing I said was, what the I said, what is this? But then when I read it, and then I got a little more angry at that because he said, I couldn't get into the premise of this book because it's ridiculous. I can't imagine. And this was a white guy. Well, here, my story tells of what happens in America when the country finds out black folks have been secretly living on the backside of the moon since before Neil Armstrong got there. Okay, so anyway, this white guy goes, I couldn't get into the premise. It seemed too much like a Saturday Night Live skit to me, And he said, and so at first, all I could deal with, and it was part ego and just part disappointment because, I had enjoyed, 25, 30, 4 and 5-star reviews.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I thought about it, and I said, oh, my God, this is from a white guy.
Yeah.
And then, no. And then when I said, this is perfect, it took, I will not lie to you, it took me 2 days to get to that point.
Yeah, definitely.
But it is perfect because for a white guy to say he can't understand why African Americans, when offered the opportunity to go live just with their own people, on the moon, away from America, away from white society, and he said he couldn't understand why any black person would be so disenchanted with living within America that he would choose to do so. And when I think about it on a much more a much broader egalitarian perspective, his review is perfect. His review is absolutely perfect. I would not take it off of there. I would not hide it. As a matter of fact, I was at a literature fest and I was going to put his review up on the screen because what it does is it proves my premise that blacks and whites see this country in a different way, they experience it in a different way, and they have ways of managing it and looking at it that are so different from each other. Sometimes there's almost no commonality at all. Okay? But like you said, my first reaction was emotional. And it was based upon ego because I did feel like, somebody here doesn't like my writing so much that they did, they wrote a bad review. So I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about because that's the essence of having to deal with the public. And not everybody's going to love everything that you do.
Yeah.
And to that question, what kind of feedback are you getting for your series? Because I would imagine you get criticism, but I would also imagine that obviously there's some popularity too.
Yeah, for the most part, but yeah, like I was gonna say something about what you said, but I can't remember.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I was gonna say something about the. Oh no. But the fact that the guy, like you understood that guy didn't really understand your book or whatever is more important than his review because like people because you have to know when people understand what you did and for him. It doesn't matter if it was black people or whatever. That guy sounds like somebody who just doesn't really know how to relate to other people, kind of thing, or in a general sense. And or not even relating, but just saying like, oh, maybe other people have it different than me. But and like I do that sometimes where I look at people, I'm like, oh, he's one of those kind of people, and I think that's kind of important when you're making anything. But there's gonna be, but it's not always gonna. Those aren't all the bad critiques or whatever. There's gonna be, there's gonna be smart people like you who don't like it and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the other part is, in order to understand other people, you have to have an empathy for the human condition that fewer and fewer people seem to be able to get in touch with. As the cynic in me points to the beginning of this in 1983, and that was when Gordon Gekko, the character in Wall Street, played by Michael Douglas, when he pronounces that greed is good. Okay, and you look where our country has come in the last generation. And when people believe that greed is good and that is the means to an end, I believe that empathy suffers. So good storytelling is even more important to get people in. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I heard. What you're saying is true, and I heard that Michael Douglas used to get people who come up with him and come up to him and go like, "Oh man, I joined Wall Street because of what you said," blah blah. And he was like, "No, you didn't get it. Like you didn't get what I was saying." And
right.
I think that's really interesting. But yeah, in terms of like critiques from DEADSTAR, it's been mostly it's good because one, I'm not making a lot of money. I'm not making any money, and because I'm just one guy doing it and stuff like that. But
well, it takes a little time. I mean, you know that, right?
I mean, most people like get most people they get what the show is and they get that it's just me doing it and stuff like that. So they're not really that negative. And
right.
And now that there's so much volume, there's so much of it now. It looks at the surface level is that it's impressive or whatever. But so yeah, that's a good thing. And hopefully it gets better so I can. Well, the fact that now like I kind of know, like from the early regular reviews of people going like oh, the animation is blah blah blah, like it's not good or something, or the show is this or blah blah. Like from that stuff, from the early stuff, I kind of like that actually helped improve the show because in the beginning if that's why I don't understand how people can't read their reviews or something like that, because it's like because I actually took that into account, the stuff they were saying and whether I agreed with it or not, and sometimes some of the stuff I did agree with, or I did not, so I even disagreed with. It was more like, oh, I just didn't even see that. Like I didn't even see that people would think that, and now I kind of see that, and now I change that, and now I do this and that. So I do. For the most part, I sort of when I didn't really know what I was doing, it was helpful because I mean at the time I didn't think it was helpful. I was just depressed, but over time it was like okay, well, instead of being depressed, maybe you just don't do the thing that people said they didn't like anymore, and then make the new stuff better, which is like an advantage I have because I do it on my own. I make new stuff, so I can improve it. If it was just like a movie I put out and that's out, and the next thing I'd have to just see the same critiques over and over again, but in this case, I can, improve new things and keep it going. And
do you get the feeling that people are not necessarily noticing to go, oh, look at that, but noticing in that you get better and better critiques about your work?
Yeah, there's definitely people. I mean, which is very nice of them, like people who've watched it from the beginning and they've gone like, oh, this is getting better and better. And there was one really nice critique, or I guess it's not. I don't even know if it's a critique, if it's a good thing, but there was a really nice guy who said like, oh, like one of the new ones. They were like, oh, this is the first time that I've watched one of these, and I didn't see any mistakes or anything. Like he basically said like all the things that I had a problem with, you've gotten rid of and stuff like that. I was like, oh wow. I mean, I don't know that person. I can't just judge everything off of what that guy says. But
no, I mean, it's not like he's your showrunner.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a good thing because with everything I improve things. So that was like a really big thing for me. And
hang on a second. Oh, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, no, sure. Go ahead.
You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the BlackScienceFictionSociety.com website. For those tuning in late, we are talking to the creator of DEADSTAR, the animated series, and you can check it out on YouTube. Just look up. I guess you can just put in DEADSTAR. I didn't try searching for it that way myself.
I think I did that before, and like something else came up. I think.
Oh, okay. Well, look for DEADSTAR
like
series.
Yeah, or animation or anime or something like that. And then
yeah, DEADSTAR series. And this is Brandon Wright, who we're talking to, coming to us from South New Jersey.
Yeah.
So those of you who are heading up north, you're going in the wrong direction. He's
Exactly.
in South New Jersey.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, how's the weather up there?
Today it was pretty good. Or I mean, it was rainy, but it was warm, which is all I care.
Yeah.
about.
What are your temps?
I think it was like 60 today. I think.
Oh man, see, you know what happened here in Chicago? Somebody's messing with me because they dropped the temps back into the into the 30s. I had a few days there where I didn't even have to wear a jacket. And which is really stupid because I've lived here long enough that I know that we can have like a really horrendous April, but I'm definitely into the warmer weather.
Yeah, same.
Do you travel much? Do you go to heavy? I know you don't have. You're still fairly young, and I don't say that in anything other than a factual manner, but do you travel much to any conventions?
Yeah, actually, last weekend, actually a week ago from today, I was at a convention. Literally Friday last week, and but
well, where'd you go?
It's called ZenkaiCon. It's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I say that not as like, oh, I go there a lot. That was like one of the few that I've been to. I've been to a few, and unfortunately that one, I had a panel at that one, but unfortunately we got there too late and I missed it. But yeah, we got to like go to the events and stuff like that. But yeah, I try to get schedule panels and get accepted as a panelist at as many conventions in this area as possible.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a good way to get some publicity about your work and who you are, and to get that out there. When you were at that panel, were there people there who recognized you or recognized your work?
No. And no, we came too late, so it got canceled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but no one really knows about it. But and I heard when I got there that there weren't that many people there at my scheduled time anyway. But yeah, I think I don't know. I am weirdly way too optimistic about it, and I always think that like, oh well, eventually people will catch on and blah blah blah. But
yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, it unless you've got some major publisher behind you or studio or something like that. The challenge for everybody, like us who are entrepreneurs, who are doing our own stories, doing our own work, the challenge is to try to raise above the background noise so that you have the kind of visibility that hopefully the work engenders and the work deserves.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of why I started, like what I was saying before about just writing and how that's important. Like that's kind of, I think, like is the most important thing. And that's like how I try to do that. It's like be louder than the background noise because which is it's a good term actually, background noise. But that was good. But because that's how I see it. Like it's kind of like you're just like the internet's so noisy, and I think the way that for me the way I chose to sort of stand out or whatever is it's not really try to stand out, but more just try to make something of quality sort of thing. So it's like, so if people, I think that's because you can't just, because trying to stand out, you kind of go crazy and you kind of, and especially for a show, you'll just do your show a disservice, and then you'll take something out of your show if you're trying to stand out or something. So I think, because if you have a really good story, then you're like, oh, well, people aren't into the story, so let me change it. Like that's not good. I think. So only in this case. Like in other cases, it's good to try to stand out. But for me, it's kind of like, okay, we'll make something of quality, and then whoever will come to it will like it, and and do things that way.
Well, that is tough because what that requires some patience. No, that requires a lot of patience. And even while you're doing it that way, I think that you still fall into the 80-20 rule. That's what I call it, where 20% of your time is about the business of being the creative, and fully 80% of the time is promoting and about the business of doing business. And when you're spending 80% of your time doing that, and still your queue, the way people find you and things like that is going so slowly, sometimes it can be pretty heartbreaking. But those who stick with it are the ones who eventually make out well.
Sure. Yeah, I kind of see things that way, because it is always heartbreaking. Because it is always like, oh, I made this thing that means so much to me or whatever, and it's good. And if a lot of people knew about it, it might be big. And then it's like, oh, well, no one saw it. Like that's never really gonna get over that. But that's a good thing. But yeah, I kind of just see it as like okay, well, you don't want to if you just keep it going, then maybe. And also, by the way, it's like it's really fun to do. Like I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun. So the fact that it's like, okay, we'll keep just having the fun, and then if it's of quality and if you're working really hard, then it's because you can't really judge when people get into something. So for me, it's all about creating the thing. It's like it's kind of like creating like a really good store that it's like okay, if I make the best store, then when people come in, then they'll have a really good time and blah blah blah, and hopefully the right person comes in eventually or something like that. I think that makes sense.
Well, no, I mean a lot of people. Okay, let me tell you the stupidity of Chicago writers up until a few years ago, and it was a collective stupidity. The collective stupidity of the writers in Chicago was, oh, I'm going to write a book, especially the black ones. Sorry to say, oh, I'm going to write a book, and then I'm going to give it to Oprah, and then I'm going to blow up. Okay,
really?
I swear to you, that was the business model of every black writer in Chicago. What, and so I couldn't.
Why Oprah? What is she doing?
Well, because remember, Oprah had her book. What was it? The book. Her online book club. Her book club. Okay. So when Oprah said, "Oh, we're reading this book this week," somebody became an instant millionaire.
Oh, okay.
And so that was the Chicago black writers' business model when Oprah had her show here. And that's what it was. Okay, that was the fantasy. That was the equivalent of stupid poor people playing the lottery, not realizing that basically it's voluntary taxation. And I realize my judgments are rather harsh, but see, I'm old. I'm like the guy who says, "Get the hell off my lawn," but I sound 40 years younger, so that's pretty cool. But seriously, the hard work part is the part that people all too often think that they can skip.
Yeah,
and sometimes it's a matter of waiting. I mean, and like you sound like you're getting out there, you're pressing the flesh, you're trying to get on these panels. When you get on these panels, at least you got a couple hundred people, hopefully, if there's that many in the audience, who are going to be exposed. Well, I know there usually aren't, but I mean, you hope that there are. Yeah, but hopefully they will be exposed to you enough that they'll go look for your stuff, Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, and I kind of, I'm more so just someone, in this case, it's just I try to use the benefit of the long haul and the long amount of time.
Playing the long game. Playing the long game.
Yeah, exactly. That's a way better way to say it. And I use that more. I think, and I suggest that to anybody who's trying to do, or doing the thing you're saying, like the book club thing. I suggest that sort of game more than some quick way, because even with that, even if like, oh, you don't want to put in the years or blah blah blah, if you just if you just choose to do that, that'll, all the other stuff you're afraid of will just go away. Like the stuff like, oh, I don't want to be doing this forever. Well, just keep doing it. Don't think about a long haul. I'd say just keep doing it, and then, and then just you'll just be way more happier, because eventually you'll sort of overcome your whatever thing. Because before me it was I wanted a quick solution. I wanted like, okay, well, I made this thing, and now I barely, I put it together, but I kind of didn't do my all and blah blah. But whatever, it's my thing, and now it's out there, and I'm gonna get big from it, and blah blah. And I feel like a lot of people do that, and I only feel that way because I did that, and I feel like a lot of people do the same things I probably did. And I kind of like the first making the show, I kind of like I didn't really. It's not that I didn't put that much effort into it, but it was more like I didn't think I needed to or something like that, or I thought just the fact that it existed, people would just come around and gather around just because it was something new, and that
if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, exactly. Just because it's new or something, or they haven't seen it because it was me doing the show by myself or something, which is new, I guess, but I didn't know anything about promotion and stuff like that. So
yeah, and that's the struggle. I mean, that literally is the, with capital letters, the struggle. The struggle is how do you get people to see what you have? And there's
like the only thing you can do, control is the quality, and I think that's the most important. That's what I was trying to say. It's the only thing you can control, the only thing that's in your thing is you can't. It doesn't even matter if it's good quality. But that's the only thing you can control, and I think that's kind of what I do now.
Yeah. I mean, I figured out how to sell 20,000 books in less than 6 months. But guess what? It's going to cost me $13,000 to do it.
Oh, yeah, and everything costs money, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have $13,000 right now. And then if I do have $13,000 later, is that what I spend it on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what if it fails?
Yeah, okay, so I pay for that full-page ad for 4 weeks in the New York Times book section.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what that $13,000 is for. And then what if, for some reason, some hot new thing comes along which completely negates the money that I spent?
Yeah,
that's like,
really
the last year it's like the last year I did cocaine. I could have done something else with that $75,000.
It's true. It's like predicting. I mean, that's kind of the same thing with creators or whatever, but it's just with time instead of money. I think it's just like anyone nowadays, anybody can make a movie. It doesn't even like it's so simple. Even I mean, I guess you do need money for like a camera or something like that, but anybody could make a great movie like right now. Anybody, and many people do all the time. And it's like there's more like. But it's more instead of the money thing. In that case, it's more like time. It's like, yeah, I could do that, but it's a lot of work. Number one, it's a lot of time. It's like, and once you spent that spent your personal, currency of money, of time and hard work or whatever. It's like at the end of that spectrum, what do you get from that sort of thing? And that's you kind of have to do that a lot. Like I do that all. I always think about that. That's all I really think about nowadays. What it's going to be worth it to put the time in, because time is
yeah, and it's all speculative. It really is all speculative. If you borrow money for a movie, they call that high risk speculative money. Yeah. And the moment you borrow it, you have to assume that you're going to have to pay back 130% minimum on the money that you borrowed.
Yeah, which is like good pressure depending on who that is.
Well, no, that's always pressure.
Yeah.
I'm doing a movie. Yeah, well, I'm doing a movie that's got a $2.5 million budget, and people go, "Oh man, you're rolling in it." No.
That's a lot.
I'm in debt. I am in debt, more debt than most people ever carry, from the moment that production starts. So there's the highly speculative nature of it, and then there are so many pitfalls. Nobody wants to make, I'm not poor, I'm broke. No broke person wants to make a $2.5 million mistake. That's an expensive mistake. So that's the other value proposition that you have to, figure out
it's like,
before you spend that money.
Yeah, even though your thing is also time, it's also money, but it's also, for that, it's also time too, because in that case, literally time is money in your case. Literally, it's like you have to spend all your time to make the best product, or you're in debt.
Somebody's got to pay that money back.
Exactly.
You know,
And
and I don't.
it's true.
So let that be a lesson to everybody. Never borrow from the mob because you have to pay it back no matter what.
Yes.
They don't have a IRS tax write-off that you can get away with. Let's talk about your process. If you let's go through the process of creating an episode from start to finish. Okay, the first thing you do is probably write the story, right?
Yes. And first there's the script, which I usually have just in my head, but which is bad in my head, and then I make it good by writing it down, and then and then I guess I write the script, and then usually there's changes. Well, nowadays I guess it was different throughout the last couple of years, but nowadays I usually have my own sort of quality control in my head. But I didn't used to have that before, and I used to just make things that, I didn't really, I don't know, I didn't understand that much about production before, and now I kind of do. But and that's in all movies is understanding production value meets creativity or writing, and but yeah, nowadays I write like the episode, and usually it's pretty tight, and it's usually pretty. I know when to kill my puppies and stuff like that, and then that's so important. And it happens all the time. Like it happens all the time where I think I have something good, and then like recently I literally cut half like a whole scene, and then I added like another part, and I was like, oh wait, I didn't need all that stuff, and now I think I'm so experienced, and then I just deleted half of the stuff I thought was amazing, and then I was like, oh well, this is better. And in my case, it's important because I'm the only one doing it, and it's a lot of time. So I need to know, like, that's a really important thing, and which is why I think this show is good training, I guess, for whatever I'm going to do in the future. Hopefully, creatively, it's kind of like everything I write is going to be a lot of time. So it's like so again, it's like time is money. So you have to know how to sort of write a scene that's going to give you all the information, but still give the episode bulk, and it still has to be kind of meaty. It can't be just like a minute, but also it's like I have to know how much. It's like okay, is this a lot of dialogue here? Do you need all that? Because I'm gonna spend like 3 weeks on this sort of thing, and then it's like okay. But I have to. It's either case. It's like okay, I have to spend that 3 weeks because this is all important and this is all really good. Or it's like okay, let me try cutting off that and then see where that goes. But a lot of times I'll no. But now I've gotten used to writing really dense dialogue so that I know so that every line is important. But yeah. So then I guess it's sending the script to the different voice actors, and if I have a new part, which I have most of the time, I have to go out and cast somebody. And like I said, I used to go to Voice Actors Alliance in the beginning. I don't really do that much now, mainly because the show has a pretty full cast of the main characters. But for new characters, I just go on Facebook groups like actors groups like Philadelphia Actors Facebook groups. Or go on YouTube and look for demo reels, voice reels for voice actors, and but sometimes I usually do just regular actors, and then I ask them if they have a microphone or something. But sometimes I get voice actors who are just voice actors, and then I email them. Then again, this is for new people. I email them and say, hey, I have this show. Do you want to do it? It's not for money and blah blah blah. It's a show I do by myself, and usually they at least respond, and usually 75% of the time they say yes, which has been really nice, which is really nice because it's like I have something that is of value to just in general because they looked at it and said they do it for no pay, which is really nice. But yeah, and then that happens, and then usually at that point I'm already like modeling sets and characters at that point. And at this point, most of the stuff, already pre-modeled. Like, I don't really model characters from scratch anymore, which I used to do in the beginning, because I needed to, practice the technique. But nowadays it's kind of like, oh, I hate that technique. I'll just because modeling characters from scratch is really time consuming, and I'm not that good at it. So nowadays I know how to. I just get pre-models that I modeled earlier, and I just build on top of that for new characters, but making sets is always fun. I always love making new sets, and then then gradually, the actors come in, the actors, agree or disagree or send an audition or something while I'm already doing other stuff that's already recorded. Like I'll be doing a scene already, and then an actor will email me their recording for the new scene. I'm like, okay, now I can work on the new scene, and then it gradually happens over time, and I'm always like overlapping work. It's always like, okay, well, I don't have this scene. Okay, what can I work on? I can work on the scene here. It doesn't have dialogue. I don't have to wait for any actors and stuff like that. So I usually overlap work like that, and I guess that's and then it just gradually through many hours of animation.
Yeah. So start to finish, how long do you think it takes you to from the time you start drafting the script until the time you've got your finished product? What do you think it is about?
If this was my full-time job, there's no way of knowing that, but
okay.
But it's because I do it off and on, or it's not off and on, but it's more like it's not a job, so I can't be doing it all the time, and
right.
I can't be working full time on it. So, but I think you generally, and also I take breaks. Like right now I have an episode finished, but I'm not releasing it. And I did work on it, even though I technically finished it back in like October. But then I did more work and I added stuff. So it's like there's no way to really tally up all that really now. But
okay.
It feels like,
no, I see what you're saying.
But it feels like a full-time job. I think an episode would take me probably a month or less, maybe. But
well, that's still a considerable amount of work.
Yeah, it's a lot. But now I know how to do it basically.
You've got your process down.
Yeah, exactly. Before I didn't.
Yeah.
And also that includes, which isn't a lot of time, but also that includes like editing the sound and matching, sound design and music. That doesn't take a lot of time, but that's like that's part of it.
And the cool part is it's still for you, with the exception of getting your sides done by your voice talent. It's still a one-person job.
Yeah. And I kind of like it that way, a little bit.
I was going to ask you about that. I mean, what have you ever thought about? And I know you're kind of new to it, but I mean, have you ever thought about collaborating with somebody else and whether that process would work for you?
Yeah, I think I've kind of collaborated with someone, not on DEADSTAR, but we were kind of starting like a new project. Now I kind of like. I just like the label that the show has, that it's done by just me, and I kind of like creating something by myself. But I'm not. I kind of like it an animated show just coming from just me. I kind of like that. It's kind of like an outlet that I can use, for whatever I think of and stuff like that. But and I kind of like that now. And before I was just like kind of doing it because I didn't really have a choice. But now I could probably get people to help me. But I kind of I like sort of like, oh, I need a robot now, instead of going to someone else and being like, hey, can you model a robot? I have an idea like this, a robot now I can, and it's like a challenge now. I can go like, okay, well, instead of sitting on your loins or resting on your loins or whatever, make the robot. Go back to the basics. Make a design, and go back to the and do it. Because in
some ways,
I get lazy.
Yeah, but in some ways, it sounds like your process is tight enough and collapsed enough that you doing it all yourself helps you streamline the process.
Yeah, that's true. Apart from that's the thing also about the acting stuff, is that's really the one thing that slows me down most of the time. and like when I have an idea and stuff like that, or when I have a thing, and it's like, I mean, I get the lines pretty quickly, even from new people and stuff like that. But like it's not like a slow thing, but that is like that is kind of like a thing that kind of holds back things a little bit sometimes. And like it would probably be twofold, you know, if it was like someone helping me with the animation or something.
And do you think that at this point, because it's, you know, fairly new, that your desire to maintain such tight control is also kind of like a quality assurance thing to make sure it's done the way you want it to be done?
I mean,
you know,
I don't really have, like, it would be that way if I was getting help, like, writing wise, like,
right?
Because again, that's the most important thing, and I know sort of how to do, like, now I've developed that skill of kind of going like okay, that's a good scene and stuff like that, and that's, you know, that's creative and blah blah. But in terms of like animation, like I could just, like, since I don't, like, it's kind of like, or just modeling, or someone to help me model, like I would most likely get someone who's better or as adept as I am. So and that, because like the modeling is like a technical skill. It's kind of like, okay, we'll just get someone good or not. But writing is kind of like I would never really collaborate writing wise on the show, especially now, because I'm like, I developed the story for 3 or 4 years or something. But I would never do that just because, you know, you don't really, because I know I have a singular sort of vision for it, and I know, and I kind of and I kind of do have it all planned out. And also, I don't know, I feel like it took me a long time to get to where I am writing wise. So.
Well, and at this point, it is your baby, you know, and you're going to be the final arbiter of quality. You're going to be the final arbiter of where the story goes, and you know, I would think that until you get to the point where not only do you have a certain amount of notoriety, but there's a certain amount of popularity for it, maintaining quality control is probably pretty important, because it's got to be exactly what you want it to be in order for you to maybe take it to the next level.
Yeah, more than taking it to the next level. I do think about that a lot, but I also think about just kind of like, not a body of work, but more like more just like a place. Like, I think of the show as like a place online, like literally a place where people go to watch something good, kind of thing. And I feel like everything I do is kind of contribute to that. So I feel like you know, if I was to get someone else to help me write, it would be like, and I don't know. I more so nowadays I want this thing to be sort of from me, kind of thing, and I want it to be.
I mean, you don't have to really. There's nothing wrong with that, man. I mean, you know, it is your creative universe. You know, I don't have anybody collaborating in my creative universe, not yet.
Yeah.
You know, once I get it set, you know, I'm finished. I've got the last volume of a trilogy done. And no, I didn't have anybody help me write it, because I had the vision. I knew where I wanted it to go. I knew the kind of people I wanted to populate it with, and there was no need for any help. And I mean, I can relate to that. I think most creatives can relate to that.
I think in your case, it would be like it would just like wouldn't it just feel like kind of weird if it's like a weird sense of identity over your idea. Like, once it's just yours, like it would feel weird if someone, you know, was to help you write that trilogy. Like, you know what I mean?
No, I do. I know. Exactly. And you know what? Yes, I've decided that, you know, I want to do short stories in that universe written by other people. But even then, I'm going to still have, you know, editorial control, and I still have my ideas. And I think that it's not very easy to relinquish that, and which brings me to a question that I don't know if you've thought about or not, but what if your level of success is sufficient enough and you get sufficient enough attention that, let's say, somebody like a Sony or a Warner Brothers, somebody comes to you and says, we're going to write you a big fat-ass check, but we want to take over what you've got. How do you feel about your intellectual property,
Yeah, I've definitely thought about that a lot, and like ever since the very beginning, and the thought has changed over time since I've gotten hopefully smarter, and more so if that were to happen, I think, I don't even. It's such a weird thing to even, because it's like they'd technically offering me money, so it's like I don't think I would turn down money in any capacity right now, but I would try. First of all, I'd try to negotiate whether they could just pay me to do it, and then if that didn't work, I honestly don't think I would ever, no matter what the money was, I don't think I would ever really sign a thing that would give the property to someone else. I don't think I'd ever do that, honestly. And I say that very hesitantly because I'm thinking, like, what if they offered me this? I could move out, I could do this, blah, blah. I'm thinking about all the things that I could just make something else and blah, blah, and just forget about that or whatever. But honestly, I don't think, there are just things, I don't know, life is short, and there are just things that, they're just important. It's just important to me, a basic thing.
Well, it's always a tough question, Warner Brothers looked at my first book and they said, we might want to option this for a movie, but we want to see how the third one ends.
Yeah.
And I know why they said that, because if all of a sudden these black folks living in outer space come and they kill all the white people in America, that's going to make for a bad investment for them.
Yeah.
They can't do anything with that. But I struggle with the idea, once you sell an option for your work, unless you can negotiate, unless you're somebody strong enough like Stephen King, you have given up the right to decide how your work is going to be used. And that's a tough one for creatives. And there have been so many authors who have gotten so pissed off at a really, really bad script that they wanted their name off the project.
Yeah,
you can't take it back, because once you take the money, they can do whatever they want with it. So that's always something that I wonder about, when creatives think about it. We would all love to be able to, yes, sell that option and still have creative control, but that's just not how Hollywood works,
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's like how many great examples are there where that worked out perfectly? It's like that rarely happens. And it'd be different if someone said, like, oh, we're gonna buy DEADSTAR and if we're gonna make it into a movie, you get to direct it or write it. I'd be like, oh yeah, let's do that.
I was at a networking meeting here in Chicago, and Tim Kazurinsky was the big draw, which tells you how messed up he was in Saturday Night Live.
Oh,
and so it's a kind of not a big famous, but
yeah,
somebody there said, yeah, he's a guy from Saturday Night Live. So anyway, and he lives in the Chicago area. So this guy says, I'm writing a script, and if I get an option, can I be on set to make sure that they're doing everything that I want them to do? And I screwed up, because I laughed out loud, and everybody looked at me like, oh, and they'd never seen me before.
Yeah.
Because it's so ludicrous, and that's one of the reasons why publishers don't deal with writers. They only deal with agents, because we're a really desperate, needy, emotionally childish bunch. Because, of course, the nature of writing is, this is of your imagination, this is of your heart, and whether people like it or not is too often taken, like I said earlier, as a repudiation of self.
Yeah, exactly.
Having said that, if somebody comes to me and says, I'm going to give you a $2 million option for Dark Side because we want to make a miniseries about it, I will probably take the money for the very reason that you already mentioned, because, I could always write something else, even if somebody tore it up. I mean, I think the classic story was Philip K. Dick with Blade Runner.
Oh,
You know, the first 3 or 4 scripts that he saw were so bad, he was so upset. He was also close to death. That he just he did everything he could to try to get his option back for Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. And then finally, when they got to the final version of the script and they actually filmed it, apparently somebody had to give like a gallon of blood or something to get him, Philip K. Dick, to come to the premiere or the closed premiere, the showing.
Right.
And because he was so angry. But then when he didn't see the final script or the shooting script, finally when he saw it, he was sitting there with tears in his eyes, and people were really upset because they thought, well, this old guy's going to kick or something. And he said, how did you get in my head? How did you see what I was writing? And so, I mean, that's the dream, but you know, in a world of Sharknado, that's very seldom what ends up, you know?
Yeah, also, again, like, I think, like what you said about your miniseries or whatever, I'd feel that way, like, if someone went to buy anything else, honestly, that I made, I'd say yes, and even if it was bad, I probably wouldn't even care, like.
Yeah,
but,
me too.
But,
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, but for DEADSTAR, for me, and I'm sure you probably have a project or many projects like this, it's just something that's, like, so important to me, like, in my just marrow. It's kind of like, I don't even know why. It's kind of like a weird thing of just, I just such a strong connection to the show.
But that makes sense.
The characters.
But that makes sense. This is your first thing, man.
Yeah. I don't know if that's it, because I don't know. I was thinking that too. I was thinking, well, it's the first thing. I don't know. I think it's just because it's more so that it's just one of the few. Because I've made a lot of stuff or whatever, but this is more like, I don't know. It's just like it's not like a nostalgia thing. It's more like I see like the outcome of it, and I think every person who makes anything has this, where it's like you see the outcome of the best version of it. You see like, okay, well that's what it's going to be, or that's what I'm going to try to make it. Like, you know what I mean? Like that best magical version of it. Like that version of DEADSTAR, to me, the magic version that exists somewhere in some, I don't know, other planet or something. Like that version to me is just so like important to me and just everything. And I feel like, oh, if people see that, then you know the whole world will change, and it's an amazing thing, and blah blah. And that, I think that's, and I don't feel that way toward any other thing I make, really. And yeah, I don't know. It's a weird thing. I never really thought about it until right now. But that's
well, if you have the confidence of your conviction, and if you have the confidence of your writing skill, I would imagine you could write a lot and not have such a heartache letting go if somebody else wanted to maybe take on what you had and make it into a movie or make it into a television show. I would imagine, you know, I always wonder about somebody like Stephen King. I mean, he has written so much stuff.
Yeah.
That if somebody's...
Yeah, like I'm sure, like Stephen King, though, he probably has something that maybe no one has ever seen before or something. Or, I mean, I'm not sure now. He has like something every year or something. But maybe, you know, like it's like if he has that one thing that's just in his vault or something, you know, that no one's ever seen or something. That's kind of how I feel in a weird way about that stuff. I'm still. I just realized that right now. That's how I feel about it.
Mhm. Let me ask you this: we got about a little over 5 minutes to go, but let's flash ahead like 5 years, okay? Okay. 5 years from now, what do you see for you? What do you see for where you are creatively, and what do you see that you may be working on, you know, that far in the future?
First of all, I hope I'm alive and well, and two, I think hopefully DEADSTAR has either ended how I wanted it to or is about to end. I'm not sure if I wanted to go for 5 years. 5 years would be the maximum, I think, of how how far I want to go. But I mean, it depends. it's like 5 years of me just doing it as I am now. I don't think I could do that anymore. But if it's like 5 years and it's been popular and people love it and stuff like that, I could do it, probably forever or something because I just love doing it. But
But I mean, I'm wondering. Okay, you've got DEADSTAR, and you've got that story arc, and you really have a vision, a pretty clear vision for yourself of where it's going to go. Do you have other properties, other creative universes that you have kind of ticking along in the back of your mind?
Yeah, I have a lot. Not a lot. There's never a lot, I think, for any artist or something. I think there's always like a few that really mean something. And I was just thinking about what I said about like, oh, I don't think like that's what's really special to me. And I think there's only really a few things that I've done and have and hope to do that are like that. Like, cause I mean, you probably know, like good ideas, like actual, good ideas that you want to do, those just come and go if you're actively creating things. Like even the really good ones, sometimes they go like, yeah, maybe I'll make that, I don't know. But the ones that are actually special, the ones that like, okay, well, I have to do this before I even die. Like this is important. This is actually a really special thing I want to say, and a special thing I want to show, kind of thing. Like that sort of thing doesn't. I don't think that happens, and it shouldn't. I don't know if it shouldn't happen a lot, but I don't think it happens a lot with anyone. And I definitely have a few of those. Actually, maybe two of those. I don't know, but there are.
Well, I mean, sometimes lightning can strike twice, or you could cheat like Vince Gilligan, and you have Breaking Bad, and then you have Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
And so like if you do something derivative of something that you've done well, people do, once they know about you, people do tend to gravitate to it because people do like the familiar. They do like, especially if you end up doing something that, you create characters that are compelling enough that people, like you create a Walter White. You know what I'm saying? Just to use the same example. And I would think that I would like to think that maybe I have that much creativity in me, but like you said, you don't know. You don't know if lightning will strike more than once. So
I think that's what I mean. Actually, is lightning strike. It's kind of like for DEADSTAR to me, it's like kind of lightning that struck, and it was like, and I could see like this amazing, the lightning basically. I could see it. And I was like, oh, that could be huge. Like that could be an amazing thing that people and really that image to me is the two main characters going on sort of adventures, like that sort of thing to me in my head. That image to me, I'm like, that's huge. Like I want to see that. Like I want to make that. And blah blah. And that's the lightning for me and for the show is that and just them going on and them going on actual like meaningful event, not like, hey, they go to this planet and then they save like save a city, yay! Like actually, like things that have good big themes. Maybe something like I think of things like I actually think of like when I come up with ideas. Since other people are more creative than me. I think of works by other people that I like, and then I put I go like, what if like Blade Runner, which I love actually, was like, what if the characters were in Blade Runner? And I was like, oh, that'd be amazing. And then I think like, well, what about Blade Runner do I love? And then I take those elements, I sort of do that sort of thing when I try to think of new ideas and stuff like that. And I kind of think that's kind of how I think of for DEADSTAR sometimes. I go like, well, what if there's a scene like Goodfellas in the show? Like I've never seen the show like animated. I've never seen an animated show with that kind of scene before, and I kind of create ideas like that sometimes. And but in terms of lightning, I think that's sort of it. It's kind of like lightning struck with DEADSTAR, and there's a few other projects I have that lightning struck for me in that, and I think you don't want to like, those are the things that you don't want to give away. I think those are the things that are like, well, that's just me. Like I can't just give away, like, you know what I mean? It's like I can't just like making money is great, but you can't give away like your own lightning, or to use a stupid metaphor. You can't. I don't know.
Well, I think that people who work hard are afforded opportunities that that are special, that don't just come just because. You know, they are of the non-lightning type, and because they're more a matter of really, really hard work and dedication, and somebody appreciates that level of the work that's being produced. And I think that those are the things that fall into that classification that you're talking about, where you don't give it up. You don't just give it up because it was a special happening, and you don't want to treat that happenstance so cavalierly.
Yeah, it's like if you see, I don't know, if you witness like a miracle or something, or it feels like that. Not that saying any story I or anyone creates is a miracle, but it just feels like you witness, like, I don't know, it's like if you tape, like, I don't know, this is a weird example, this is the only example I can think of. If you tape like your childbirth or something like that, like your child being born, and then you kind of like put it online or something, like, you know what I mean? Or you not put it online, but just if you sell it or something like that, it's kind of like, oh, well,
you put it out there somehow, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, or you make money off it. Like, putting it out there is fine, I guess, but you kind of try to capitalize from something special that happened to you, kind of thing. It's kind of like, well, that's kind of like your identity. Like, the only identity anyone really has is important, is special things that happen to them. Like, if you, and that's kind of a weird metaphor for how I think about DEADSTAR and other projects that I have. I'm sure you probably have the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I've got 7 books in a series, and like, almost like Frank Herbert, and of course I'm hoping that I stay alive long enough to do it, and I'm very proprietary about it. I don't want to to do any collaborations on it because I know where it's going to go, and it is uniquely mine. It's a story nobody ever thought of before. So yeah, it's precious to me. And I want to steward that story myself because it is precious to me. So no, I understand, and it's more than just being proprietary, but there's a certain amount of pride and ownership, and there's a certain amount of identity that I believe belongs with those kinds of projects, those kinds of ideas. So no, I truly do understand where you're coming from. And the other thing I want to ask you is, you mentioned that you're getting out there more. You're trying to get to conventions and things like that. If you would do something for us, for BlackScienceFictionSociety.com, if you're going to do appearances someplace, try to visit the events calendar and put the event up, because what that does is, if there are people in your area who are looking for something to do, they can look and they'll see that you'll be at such and such a venue paneling this talk or whatever, and then you can get to meet, some of the people. Hopefully some of the people will show up, and you get to meet some of the people who populate this creative universe that BSFS is. Think about doing that. Like we were going to have a few people meet here in Chicago for C2E2 at the end of April, but it looks like it might not exactly happen then, but we'll be able to pull it off maybe a little bit after C2E2. So it's good because then you get to run into the kind of creatives, like, what if you and I show up at the same place? Man, we're going to sit down, we're going to have a good conversation. I think we will.
Totally.
So those are the kind of cool things. So think about doing that, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the show is coming to a close. But I mean, it's been great talking to you because you're new, and not in a bad way. I mean, you're just you're at the very beginning of what looks like is going to be a really a rocking good time creatively for you. And I firmly believe that it's just a matter of time before people start discovering you, more not necessarily mainstream to start with, but getting up to kind of a mainstream awareness of what it is you're putting out there. And the cool part is that you've got a great YouTube channel. Those get discovered, and you just never know what may happen when it, someone, maybe that special one person comes and is that breakout person for you or propels you forward. So all of those things are really good things. And I've had a great time talking to you. I'm glad you got here. Sorry it happened late, but I mean, we didn't lose anybody. We still have a bunch of people listeling.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was my fault. I
next time, watch the clock.
I know. I was looking forward to it, and I was actually working on the show, and then I was like, and I don't do this often, which I should do. I definitely should do this, but I don't. Like, we're usually closed, but I try to close down like the internet and stuff like that while I'm doing the show, which I should do.
Right, so you don't get distracted. Yeah.
Exactly, but I do that all the time. Like, who doesn't? Like, go on YouTube for 2 hours and then, oh, what happened? Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I closed it and then I went just to check it, and then I was like, oh crap, this is 9, and then here I am. But,
well, I mean, you made it. We had a great show. I mean, I hope it was good for you. Was it fun?
Yeah, definitely. I love talking movies and stuff like that. If I could do that for the rest of my life, I would just talk about movies. That's
man. If I could just stay on the couch and actually, you know what? I actually do enjoy. Now I enjoy the process of making or producing a movie.
Yeah.
Because the cool part is from the start to finish part. And I mean the finished part where you go, oh man, we just did the credits. Look at that. We now have a movie.
Yeah.
Being able to take all of that and put it together has really made me appreciate it and enjoy it. I've got one feature movie I want to do next year, and we'll see what goes on from there. But the process is fascinating, and for you to be a one-man shop is pretty incredible. And all I can say is, my hat's off to you, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, like you said, it's fun. It's just fun, like, kind of transforming different energy into, like, transforming a lot of work into, like, something that's, like on screen and it's like a movie. And
mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's weird making credits, like you said. It's weird, like, oh, this is a movie now. This is
oh yeah,
used to be an idea. But
yeah. Well, thanks for being here. I'm going to call up Jarvis. Jarvis always closes out our show. But hang on after the recording is over, and then if there's a little bit we can chat about, and I'll look in the chat room, see if anybody has any extra questions. Nothing in there right now, but okay. So Jarvis, why don't you take us home?
Oh, thanks. As usual, I want to thank everyone involved in this process and in this show. Most definitely for Brandon for taking his time out and sharing his experience with us, because he's like one of my heroes right now, because I'm like in the process of doing a 3D project, and this guy is doing 99% of the stuff by himself. So kudos, and my hat is off to you.
Thanks. Thanks for putting me on.
Most definitely, man. I had to. And I told someone earlier, it's a crime that you aren't actually more well known than you are, and so we're going to do our part to try to make that come to fruition, where you're more well known and may possibly collaborate with some people on the site. And I'm gonna do my best to send some business your way. So get your mind right. It's coming. And Will, thanks for making it entertaining as always.
You're quite welcome.
Okay.
I'm serious. Until the ankle bracelet comes off, I'm here every Friday.
Oh, I want to encourage everyone to go on the site. I dropped a couple links in there, but to go to our featured videos. Brandon's video, one of his first movies, is the full length, and it's a full length movie. Is on our featured video section. So just click that one, and you can watch that movie. And then also in the video section, you may need to do a search. There are several other clips as well. But if you want to see the first feature-length film, go to our featured video section and check it out.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Great.
Well, on behalf of everybody who does this show and everybody who supports it, the same people, the people who come, who listen, who pick it up as a podcast, I want to thank everybody for participating and reminding everybody that this show starts usually sometime around 9 p.m. Eastern every Friday night. We look forward to seeing you. Please tell your friends. Please tell your family. And drop by and see all the cool things that we have to offer. So on behalf of Jarvis, Brandon, everybody else, the usual suspects and whatnot, I want to wish everybody a good evening, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
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 All right. Thanks.